Hello and welcome back to the Help Is Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. Happy New Year if you are listening to it at the start of 2025. It's actually the 1st of January today as we record. Welcome
Yeah.
back on the podcast, Mary. Happy New Year to you as well. How are you doing today?
Happy New Year. Yeah, I can't believe we made it. 2025. That just seems like, I don't know, it seems like a milestone, but here we are, right?
Yeah,
2025. Yikes.
I know.
Oh,
It
yeah.
seems like very far into the future now. Like looking back when I was younger, 2025 just seemed
Yeah.
so far away. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really good time last night, just spending it with friends and having a bit of a party and feeling really good, to be honest with you, going into this year. Just booked another holiday as well. I'm going to do a bit of a challenge this year where I try to go to one different place every month. And, obviously work's kind of my priority, but then just to have that like rest time, going and exploring and taking it easy in a different country is going to be so fun as well. So I'm really looking forward to this year. And I know we've got a lot of work to do on addiction because the world's going pretty crazy when it comes to addiction recovery. And there's something that you want to share today, Mary. So do you want to get into it all? I know you said there was
Sure.
something that you wanted to talk about.
Well, we're going to be bombarded now with New Year's resolutions, right? Just
Mm.
crazy, crazy stuff and all the diet stuff and everything coming on the TV and everything like that. It's like I sent you the thing. Excuse me. It was the 2 weeks or whatever what do they call it? I sent it to you where like people drop off their resolutions. It's just like it's all such a joke, you know. And last time we talked about the intermittent reinforcement, but today, I don't know. I kind of would like to get people to resolve something that actually is going to matter to people with addiction overall, is like how about people resolve to stop normalizing addiction. There's just literally so much of it. And we talked earlier the other day about the idea of binging. I think we were talking about it in relation to porn, binging porn or whatever. But this word has become like a joke, right? Binging, you hear it literally everywhere. Binge watching is like the big thing, binge watching some show or whatever, or just using the word like addiction. Oh, I'm addicted to a certain kind of cookie, or I'm addicted to, buying purses, whatever. It's just addiction, 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 and condoning this, and I saw this thing on I think it was Facebook. Um, it's this woman, and it can probably see her here. She's jamming chocolate cake into her face. It's all over her face. She's just literally it's a reel or something. It's a video, and she's literally just got her hands dug into this cake and smashing it into her face. And it says, "Little rewards are so important." And then the other caption on the reel is me feeling like I deserve a little treat after giving up sugar for a day. And then I went into the comments just out of curiosity, and it's just like people making joke after joke after joke after joke about how funny this is that this woman goes off sugar for a day, and this language of, oh, I deserve it and it's a reward and all this stuff. Um, And truthfully, I mean, her jamming this cake into her face made me sick. But the whole normalizing of a deadly addiction just really fucking pissed me off, to tell you the truth, right? I told you I wouldn't bring you down today. I'm about to bring you down, Tom. So I want to share this letter it's in my book here, Beyond Food Compulsion. Um, One of my clients, a real person, right? Dear Tori, and our remember letters, our clients write remember letters for anyone that on the podcast listener or listening to the podcast who doesn't know that already, to document what it's really like to be in their addiction, right? Dear Tori, do you feel like baking that cherry pie tonight? Go ahead and don't forget to make a big batch of whipped cream to go with it. It's good warmed up with vanilla ice cream as well. Once you've eaten the entire pie, don't forget to test your blood sugar before you go to bed. Or better yet, forget testing your blood. Heck, you know the blood sugar's high. Just take a big old dose of fast acting insulin. Then check your blood sugar in the morning. You never know, you might make a pretty good guess at how much insulin you need. Your blood sugar might even be normal in the morning, and then you can just pretend you never ate that cherry pie. I wake up about 5 a.m. Every muscle in my body is stiff as a board. Any movement is agony. My face is crusted and sticky with dried glucose gel and blood. My tongue is cut and bleeding in several places. I know I am in bed. I am very scared. My brain doesn't seem to be working. I slowly try to turn my head toward my husband. Steve, what happened? You had a seizure, honey. I had to give you glucose gel. What day is it? It's Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning. I slowly try to piece together the events of the past few days to try to recover my memory. I realize that the sheets are soaking wet beneath me. Steve, I wet the bed. We need to change the sheets. I start to cry as I try to stand up. My legs are so stiff. I can barely get them to bend. We strip the sheets and the mattress pad from the bed and then throw on some clean sheets. I walk into the bathroom and wash off my face with a warm wash rag. My tongue is killing me. I look in the mirror and see that I have bit off the tip. I go back to bed, but am filled with anxiety, fear, and remorse. I finally fall to sleep. I spend the next few days recovering from the seizure. There are many things that you could remember, Tori, about eating compulsively. There is the dread of trying to figure out what to wear every morning. There is the embarrassment of seeing people who haven't seen you in a few months and seeing the shock in their faces at how much weight you've gained. There is the sadness of a pretty face that is masked in obesity. There is the inability to freely move about with agility and grace. There is the acknowledgement that you no longer have those beautiful legs you used to have. There is the humiliation of visiting your diabetes doctor and having to weigh in. There is the disgusting roll of back fat underneath your bra. There is the continual modification of your social activities to compensate for being fat. Yes, there are many things that you could and should remember about compulsive eating, but the most important one to remember is how you felt the last time your eating almost killed you, Tori.
Mm.
So, haha, funny, funny binge, right? Haha, funny, funny, not funny. And this girl jamming this chocolate cake into her face, this is just one of millions of jokes that are being made about food compulsion. And it's really frustrating because I mean, and using the word binge and as a joke in so many ways is like people, how do you think like the parents whose kids just, died from a heroin overdose feel about these jokes that are being made about addictive behavior? Is it just gross misunderstanding that food compulsion is a full-on addiction? It's very frustrating to me. And if I had my way, I would like to see people for a New Year's resolution stop participating in these jokes and this language that is, making fun of people being compulsive about food because it's not funny. It's not funny at all. And that letter from Tori, I mean, that's one of many, the stories that I've heard, with all like the gastric bypass and everything. It's a very, very deadly addiction. And now we've come to the place where we normalize diabetes. Like, oh, yeah, this is just something that everybody has. You see all these ads for these diabetes medications, and they're like the grand finale in the musical, and all these obese people dancing and singing the big finale about this drug that they're taking for their diabetes. And it's like, this is not funny and it needs to stop. It needs to stop because it's bleeding into so many other addictions as well, because we've talked about it before, is like anybody trying to stop anything, even our guys with the porn, they think, oh well, just reach for food because everyone's going to condone that, because that's just what we do, have a Snickers, you're not you when you're hungry, all that kind of bullshit. It's like, yeah, so that's my rant for the day, and I hope that people can resolve to really seriously stop participating in the normalizing of addiction, because people are really suffering very serious negative consequences. And there's also there's a lot of death from food binging that they don't necessarily connect, because someone has a heart attack or someone has a stroke or whatever, but it comes on the tail end of a major food binge, and so they just think, oh, well, they just have a heart attack or a stroke.
Mm,
But it's if someone, dies of an overdose of heroin or an overdose of binge drinking, I mean, people die from that all the time,
mm.
it's just not funny, so
Yeah, I
yeah,
think some
bad for it.
people they probably joke about these kind of things because they don't really know how to deal with it. So it's
Yeah,
easier to not face reality than face reality. And I think that's why we obviously get every client that we work with to write one of these remember letters. And so just like bringing it back to porn addiction, about 12 months ago, I'd only just started working with you. I was only a few weeks into learning the Beyond Compulsion method at that point, and that was probably the biggest difference between learning and working with you and learning this method and everything I tried for the previous 10 years, because I think in the previous 10 years I did have the same consequences of being in the porn addiction, but I wasn't actually acknowledging and facing that reality. And obviously we have the privilege of working with clients and getting them to bring that reality into awareness because they're already aware of it, but they're not always actually taking the time to really go into that because the addictive part of the mind doesn't want them to. The addictive part of the mind wants them to make jokes about it because that's obviously the easy route. And if you can
yeah,
make a joke out of your suffering, then it feels
yeah,
a little bit better. And the alternative is when you actually face that reality and you see that, okay, if I carry on this path, then the trajectory is basically me continuing to feel pretty depressed and lonely and disconnected and frustrated with yourself, with low self-esteem and feeling shame and all of these pretty horrendous symptoms. That's what staying in an addiction leads to, but not many people are willing to face that reality because it is scary. And we have one of the biggest things we have with clients is that when they first come to us, they are so scared because they're scared that they're going to fail again. Because most people, including myself when I'd first met you, have relapsed literally hundreds of times, having told themselves, this is a new year. I'm never going to do this again. Or after every relapse, I'm never going to do this
yeah.
again, and then you end up
You know,
relapsing.
the thing is like, think about it. Like, why are people so afraid to try to stop again? They're so afraid of failing again if it's so goddamn funny and fun. You know, it's not. Addiction is not funny. It's not fun. And I think you're absolutely right that they make jokes for a little bit of relief from that dread, of like, oh my God, I'm stuck with this behavior. It's killing me. I'm miserable. So if I get on the bandwagon with everybody else and make jokes about it, then temporarily I can feel a little bit better.
Mm.
So,
But I also
yeah,
don't think many
yeah,
people are even at the awareness level of like, okay, this is the biggest problem in my life. Because if
yeah.
you go to a therapist, they're going to look at other things. So,
Mhm.
I won't mention anybody, but like there's someone I can think of now who I know isn't that happy in life in general. And the biggest problem they have is undoubtedly food because they think and talk about that quite a lot. And, they're not in like in crazy bad shape, but that doesn't really matter. Like it's what's going on in the
Doesn't
brain that
matter.
matters. So you can be in incredibly good shape and have a really bad addiction with food. So the problem is what's going on mentally for you. So anyway, what we've got is yeah, these people who their biggest problem in their life will maybe be a food addiction, or maybe it's a porn addiction, or whatever addiction. And what they'll do is they'll probably go to therapy. They'll talk through their issues, and then the therapist, there's a good chance anyway, the therapist is going to say, okay, well, tell me about your childhood. And then they're going to delve into some stuff that actually has very little to do with the real problem, which is addicting neural pathways, the inability to deal with your own mind, like deal with your desires and not get out of control. And when you're in an addiction, you are going to be getting out of control and doing things that you don't want to do. And I don't think there's anything much worse in life than not being in control of yourself. I mean, the external we can't control, and that's why you want to take a bit of a stoic approach to life, at least in my opinion, of like, look, I can't control this, let me focus on what I can control. But what's seriously scary and what like destroyed my mental health was not even having control over my own self. And that is like genuinely terrifying.
Yeah, it really is. It's I think that you're right that people don't they're because they live in such denial about it, and there's so much normalizing of addiction that they're not connecting the dots necessarily. So then they go to therapy and try to figure out what's wrong rather than going being stuck in an addiction. That's what's wrong, So that if I can get out of this, then a lot of other things are going to become very clear. And I don't know who you're talking about or whatever, saying that they focus on food all the time, but they don't.
I
They're
mean,
pretty
there's a
fit
few
or
people to be
whatever.
honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there. I know. I could name 100
Yeah,
easily.
exactly.
So, but the thing is that's the gross misconception is that bulimia and anorexia are eating disorders, right? But the main eating disorder, which is the same disorder pretty much, just different aspects of it, is compulsive eating, right? So the thing is you have a compulsive eater trying to control it with exercise, they become exercise compulsive, or they're trying to control it by purging so they don't gain the weight because they don't want the weight gain, which you look at that and go, okay, wait about what about fat acceptance? If you're so accepting of being fat, what the hell are you doing in the bathroom, vomiting your food? It doesn't make sense, right? But then an anorexia, I mean, it's they're trying to control the desire that, it's all about the addictive desire to eat out of control, to eat beyond what is reasonable. So if you're going to not eat at all, you're trying to control the desire. It's all the same compulsion. So you can't even limit it to, oh, it's just the people that are becoming obese from it.
Mm.
There's so much trying to control it that you've got bulimia, you've got anorexia. And I'll tell you what, all this crazy diet fitness crap, we are creating eating disordered children
Mm.
in by the billions. It's like it's happening and people are wondering, well, what's happened? And talking to a friend last night, oh, it's about what's in the food. It's like, no, it's not what's in the food, people. Blame it on the food. It's no, blame it on the dieting, blame it on the healthy eating craze. I mean, yeah, eat healthy, that's good, or whatever, but you're teaching these kids just to be food obsessed. And my friend last night was like, oh, they're going to turn the food pyramid upside down because that's what's wrong. I'm because the grains are at the bottom. I don't know what the hell is the food pyramid. All I know is when I was a kid,
Mm.
there we saw that food pyramid maybe once. We kind of like, yeah, what was that thing we saw one time? And we had literally one obese girl in my class of 400 people, right? One obese girl.
Mm.
And it's like, nobody talked about nutrition. Nobody talked about dieting. Nobody talked about fitness. Not at all. And now here we are. You can, I mean, the information available about nutrition is like it's phenomenal. It's astronomically crazy, and here we have, we're getting closer now, 2030. We're going to be half of us are going to be obese here in America at least.
Mm.
Yeah,
You
so
know what I
it's
think we're missing as well
yeah,
is just like people making choices for themselves and knowing what feels good and what feels wrong for themselves. And I
yeah,
think compulsion, a big part of being in a compulsion or addiction or however we want to call it, is you're always looking externally
yeah,
for answers to a vast amount of, loads of different sources. I would say one of the best things I ever did last year was go, okay, I'm sticking with you. I'm not going to listen to anyone else. And that's what I did. And we've got a client who I think he's overcome this now for about 5, 6 months or whatever. And I remember a few months ago, he messaged me with a link to a new Spotify big like podcast. It was, what's his name? I think is his name Richard Bartlett? Stephen Bartlett. Yeah, Stephen Bartlett had like this podcast with some porn addiction experts, and it was like some urologist as well or some shit. Anyway, this video had like literally
yeah.
millions
It's
of
about your
views.
penis.
It was the
Sorry.
craziest thing. Yeah. And so this client who's doing really, really well, he's like probably at that point 3 or 4 months in, just enjoying life. He's dealing with every urge by thinking it through with his scripts. He's having a good
Yeah.
time. Sends me this link and he's like, I'm gonna give this a listen later. He gets like 2 minutes in and he sends me like a quote from it, which was just like some ridiculous quote where they're just talking some absolute shite. And he's like, yeah, I had to turn it off after 2 minutes because it's just such bad information. And that's the thing is that if you go to like 1,000 different sources for information, you're gonna end up so overwhelmed and confused and like, what the hell do I actually do? Like, how do I deal with this problem? So you got all this like nutritional information and stuff on all these diets and different ways to deal with food and like all this different information on what foods are good, what foods are bad. But the reality is like if you eat some good food and you vet it, you're gonna know like whether that's good food or bad food. You don't
Yeah.
need to go and look into all this nutritional shit. And like if you eat too much chocolate, you're gonna feel shit. Like you know that eating too much chocolate makes you feel shit, so just don't do
Yeah.
that again. Like it's so simple. And you have all the
Yeah.
answers. Like you don't need to ask anyone else for answers.
Yeah.
Like if you
It's
eat
not
too much, you
rocket
feel
science.
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not rocket science.
It's not. It's
You
simple.
don't need to read anything to know if you're what's on your plate is something that's going to be good for your body, decent, and
Mm.
or you're eating some crappy box shit. And the other thing is like if okay, let's say the government, ooh, all the conspiracies, they're putting all this horrible stuff in the food to make people sick and all this crap. Guess what? You don't have to buy that crap. It's like you just they're not coming to your house and at gunpoint jamming this food into your down your throat.
Mm.
It's like you can buy what you want to buy. It's like there is food that's available
Mm.
that is not crap. And the thing is guess what? You can eat some crap every now and then. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
whatever. It's just not a big deal. You
yeah.
know, if you can, I know that you post a lot of the podcasts over to the YouTube. If you could put in the link my article, I Brought Sad Food, I think that would really help educate a lot of people on this topic of, food compulsion and the making jokes about it, because I mean,
Mm.
that's what I came into this podcast really thinking is like, this needs to stop.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you want to really do something helpful for yourself, for
Mm.
anybody else that that is suffering from any kind of addiction, um, make that New Year's resolution. Stop participating in the normalizing of food compulsion. And you don't have to call people out when they do it or whatever. Just don't participate. And if you want, you can call people out. You can say, that's people eating way too much and getting really sick from it. It's not funny. It's
Mm.
not funny. Look at Tori. I mean, my God, what a horrible experience.
Yeah, it's
Can you
awful to have to
imagine
go through that.
biting off the tip of your tongue?
Yeah, it's
You
crazy.
know,
So
so
sad.
sad. Yeah.
But it's not really. Yeah, I mean, how do people even get into that situation? I guess, as you say, though, it is the mass information on dieting and all these hacks and tricks
Oh,
that actually just lead to intermittent reinforcement and
yeah.
this helplessness and disempowerment. When the truth is, everyone listening to this just has a choice as to how they spend their time, what they consume every single day. And you're right that just like with food, there being all this terrible food out there, which there is, and let's not shy away from the fact that food has gotten worse over time, and the unhealthy food is cheaper now than ever, and the healthier food is more expensive. That
I don't
is
know
a
about that.
reality. But I mean, I think what you disagree with that then?
I think it's shopping in the produce aisle is cheap.
Mm,
I really think, buying a bunch of processed box shit is like not that cheap. I mean, maybe whatever, but again, it's not, it's still going to be a choice. And you're saying, coming from the perspective of doing this work for a year, I get like you feel really empowered to make choices about what you do. But these people that are, you think, how did they get here? These people are stuck in these food compulsions and they're just being, bombarded with all this information, intermittently reinforcing it with every new diet and all this crap and all these challenges and all this stuff. It's like they really, without this kind of help, they really don't have a choice. You know what I mean? They're just like, they're busting out of all these horrible feelings, and they're just going to eat to prove they can, and it's a sad situation. So yeah, so but I get, coming from this perspective of doing this work for a year and this deep understanding that you have about how you can change your neural pathways in order to really make every conscious choice for yourself in the moment that's going to serve you. I
Mm.
mean, most people don't have that. And not only do they not have that, they have the opposite. They have the entire, media out there jamming helplessness down their throat. It's a lot of
Mm.
jamming down the throat today. Sorry. It's like not a
Well, I
very good,
think,
where we started with that girl jamming that cake into her face.
yeah, but I do think that is
Yeah.
true that society's like it's got way worse in terms of how much helplessness and
Yeah.
information and media and content and food and shit
Yeah.
being marketed to people like it is just always in your face now more than ever. I mean, I remember doing some work in like this nice office space about a year ago and I was like really in like this flow state, just smashing through some work, feeling really good.
Yeah.
And then I just hear this van, and this van's just got this music blaring, and there's like these like I think it might have been Boohoo, this like company that sells clothes, and there's all these clothes on the screen, and it's like this big van with all these, clothes and like just all this marketing. And it's like I'm literally in the middle of some work, like just in the city centre. Like this is crazy that now there's this van in front of me that's like it reminds me of a Black Mirror. I don't know if you've ever seen Black Mirror, but there's an episode in Black Mirror where there's this guy and he's like stuck in basically like a prison cell. I mean, I think they're on like some other planet, like literally, and there's just like porn in this like prison cell, just like basically being blurted out all the time. And I think he has to use like tokens or his coins to stop the porn from continuing because it's like just so in his face. And I mean, that's kind of where the world's heading in a way, but it doesn't have to be that way because people don't have to consent to the helplessness of always
Yeah.
having this. And I think, as you say, we need people kind of standing up to the bullshit around us and just being
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is going on? Like, sorry to
Yes. Teach
swear,
them
but like,
how.
the world is going pretty insane out there in terms of the amount of just terrible, terrible
Yeah.
stuff and people just being marketed awful, awful
Yeah.
products, which are just ruining people's mental health and ending
Yeah.
up like, the person you worked with in that remember letter. It's really
Yeah.
sad that people are ending up like that.
Yeah.
And people do have a choice. There is an alternative to that.
Yeah. How to not have to consent to helplessness.
Yeah.
That's what's missing. People don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
It's possible, but when everything out there is validating helplessness, it makes it very challenging for people, and they feel like they don't have a choice. They feel like that in the
Because they're
moment.
in
They
addiction as
don't have
well.
any way to they don't have any way to deal with the desire and the feelings.
Mm.
That's the problem. So that's the how-to that we can provide for them. So that's the good news for 2025, right?
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
good news. Yes, there's a
Yeah.
way out. Yeah,
The thing is, like, when you actually do know how to deal with any compulsive desire, it will spread over to every area of your life. Like,
right.
yes, pornography sorted, yes, food sorted, but you can really use the concepts for literally everything. I was talking to a guy yesterday who just got back from the gym, and to be fair to him, his biceps were looking pretty massive as well. I was speaking to him on a call, and I remember him saying to me, he was like, yeah, so I was like listening to the script and I was actually like just thinking over and over in my head, like willingly accept this temporary discomfort as he was going into his like sets for his bicep curls. So he was just like building this relationship, like these new neural pathways where he was learning that actually, if I experience this temporary discomfort on the other side of this, I'm going to feel really good. I'm going to get
Yeah,
stronger. And it was a great sort of metaphor really for how we work
yeah.
with clients, which
Well,
is
it
that,
is building a muscle.
yeah,
I mean, it literally is building a muscle, but I hope his muscles don't get too big because that's just not a good look. I feel like when you see these people, mostly guys with all these built up muscles, I think, oh, compulsive. I think obsessed. No, thank you. I mean, not that I do dating anymore, but I would run the other direction if I saw someone really super pumped up. So, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, fair
I mean,
enough.
there's being fit and what's good for your body, And
Mm.
then there's being obsessed, it's just not a good look. And you can tell the difference, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you don't want to be one of those guys who's like taking steroids and is like
Yeah,
obsessed with taking like protein and all this stuff. I did like
yeah,
as I've said before, I did that fitness challenge last year, which just intermittently reinforced addicted food neural pathways. That was before I
yeah.
met you. Well, in 2023 that was, and that was crazy. Like the guys we were working with, like the personal trainers, and it was a really expensive program as well. It was like over £2,000 for just 6 weeks.
Oof.
And you'd be in the gym 3 times a week. You'd have this really strict diet plan, 1,000 calories per day.
Like,
You'd be working out for like an hour doing cardio, and you'd have this like fitness workout with your PT, and then you'd be having this certain amount of like certain grams of protein, certain grams of
uh,
carbs, certain grams of fat, like everything
uh,
done. And so I did
dribble.
that. Yeah, it was crazy. Obviously I lost like
Mm.
a load of fat. Got in supposedly good shape, but to be honest, my family were just like, "What is going on? Like, you look like a drug addict. Like, my face was so gaunt and skinny. I just looked wrong." And then anyway, like 6 weeks later, I just put on the weight again. And back then, I was like, consuming the protein shakes and doing all of that shit and tracking everything. Whereas now, my like approach towards fitness is so good. Like, I
Yeah,
just go to the gym like quite often. I don't really have a set plan for when
yeah,
I'm going to go, but maybe like 4 days a week, something like that. I don't know, something like that. Depends on the week as well. But anyway, so I'll go to the gym and then I don't have any like protein powder or track anything. I don't care how many calories I eat. Some days probably
yeah,
more than others. Some days I have more protein than others. I
yeah.
don't. Like, it's all so compulsive if you start tracking all that shit, and it's just not going to get
That's
you anywhere.
yeah. It's as opposed to I ate this da da da, so now I need to go to the gym and plug in that many calories into the
Oh my
treadmill.
God.
And
What
the thing is
a
all the podcasts out there, all the new podcasts, there's just going to be so much drivel. I mean, oh my God, just like the talk about proteins and calories and
Yeah.
all the nutrition stuff. Could we bore ourselves to death?
Mm.
Seriously. I mean, it is so boring. But then on the other hand, it's also with that incorrect focus toward the food compulsion, it's just making it worse and worse and worse and worse. Every
Yeah.
year, we're going to come out of the new year with more people that are deeper in whatever addiction it is that they're trying to stop.
Yeah, yeah. You know what's
How's
ironic
that
as
for doom
well?
and gloom?
I'd say like the sad thing is that most of the content which is talking about, eat this amount, you got to go to the gym this amount, if anyone's saying you got to do this, it's a red flag straight away. And the
Yeah,
reality is, it's like marketed as like self-improvement, and people are getting these dopamine hits from receiving that information and being like, "Oh my God, like this is this new revelation in neuroscience where if I
yeah,
sleep at this precise minute on this precise day and wake up at this minute on this day and have this in place, then that in place, and this, then I'm gonna like maximize my
yeah.
productivity." All the while they're in some
Oh,
compulsive state and they've not actually learned how to deal with taking control of their choices moment by moment. And really, once you do that, all this other stuff, you can just look at it and be like,
yeah.
Jesus, like just get a grip. Like it's not the
I can't,
problem.
I couldn't listen to that if you put a gun in my head. Literally, I literally could not do it. Oh, and now we have the new America, we got Make America Great Again, right? Which is, oh, I'm just going to have a heart attack. But now we have Make America Healthy Again. Okay,
Right.
we're talking about obesity, diabetes, and all that. And I get like there's a focus there for, poisoning our food. Great. Please do take care of the glyphosate, get rid of that shit or whatever. But the thing is what they're doing is they're calling us unhealthy.
Mm.
It's it's not unhealthy except in regard to addiction being unhealthy. It's Make America, it's not a cute acronym, but Make America not food compulsive again. How about that? That's the problem. People are food addicted, food compulsive. It's a food compulsion epidemic. It's not people are unhealthy. Yeah, you get unhealthy when you become obese, but it's the wrong focus. So it's not going to do any good, this whole Make America Healthy Again, which is everyone's all about it.
Mm.
And I'm just like, no, they're not gonna accomplish anything. And in the next 4 years, if they get rid of glyphosate, I'll be happy.
Yeah,
So
I appreciate you were trying to like summarize that quickly with like an acronym, but I think a better way to word it, I reckon, is something along the lines of, give people their choice back so they can make rational choices and not go around in circles
there's an
in a state of
acronym.
helplessness. Oh yeah, that's a very nice, concise acronym for all our listeners. But
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just because you said like make Americans not compulsive or something along those lines. And obviously, what we
Again,
always
yeah,
talk about is
yeah,
like not about what you're not doing, it's about what you are doing. So, what
yeah.
we've got to do, our mission is obviously we're changing those neural pathways. We're giving people their power back and making them
Make
feel
America empowered again. MAEA. Make
uh,
America empowered again.
although
Yeah.
anything that starts with
Yeah,
make
and fuck
America,
them, mega, maha, whatever that.
I was
Fuck
gonna
them. I don't
say,
even want to entertain their bullshit
literally.
on
Yeah.
their podcast. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And
literally.
yeah, it's just
But
all so disgusting and gross. I can't stand it. But
just
let's see.
to kind of wrap things up, I do want to
Mm,
make that point again is that in 2025, if you're listening to this, you want to overcome porn addiction, well, make it your focus to change the way that you think so that you feel empowered to make choices that you're proud of. That is what I would prioritize because the first thing I would say is that from my experience, being in a porn addiction is like a full-time job. And you've said this all
yeah.
along, Mary, and it took me a while to really see how much of a full-time job being in a porn addiction is. Second of all, what I would say is that it's the number one problem in your life. Chances are, if you're listening to this, it probably is. And so, yeah, again, just prioritize it. And then the third thing is to focus on what you're choosing to do and why. So, choosing to change these neural pathways instead of being like, I'm not looking at porn, I'm going to quit porn, I can't watch porn. Any language that's about like not doing something isn't going to be very productive because if we think about dead people right now, every
Yeah.
single dead person is going to be able to achieve the goal of quitting porn throughout 2025. They're dead. There's not
They're
actually
dead.
any goal being achieved there. So we need to focus on what we actually are doing instead of what we're not doing.
Yeah. So if you're thinking I'm just not going to do whatever addiction 2025, right? What am I choosing to do and why? Because the thing is I've found with my work over the years that because there's such a high success rate in the work that I do, that people think, oh my God, if I do that, if I connect with her, then I have to stop my addiction.
Mm,
Shift it. What am I choosing to do and why? I'm choosing to look at another alternative to the things I've been trying over and over and over and over and over that are not working, like our last podcast when I showed you the woman, another remember letter, who wrote the same thing on January 1st every year. This time I'm going to lose the weight or whatever it said. But so shift that. What am I choosing to do and why? I'm going to choose to connect with these people because there can be resistance, especially if people think there's a high success rate. That means, oh my God, I have to stop my addiction.
mm,
So, what am I choosing to do and why? Choosing to try something different to connect to my neural pathways, and these folks can show me how to do that. Doesn't mean I have to stop anything. I'm just looking at another alternative and
yeah,
maybe finding success in that. Yeah, that's probably a
yeah,
good place to wind it up.
yeah,
Success in
absolutely.
2025. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm very excited
Yeah,
for this
me
year
too.
and hopefully we can help a lot more people. Thanks a lot for listening to this
Yeah.
podcast. We're going to do some live events this year as well. So go over to beyondcompulsionacademy.com. You should be able to find our latest upcoming one. We'll probably have about 6 spaces available on there quite soon. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the
Thank
next one.
you.
Bye.
Bye.